you're buying into a network. You're buying into this peer network. So sometimes like your GM is having time management issues. Me giving you the solve on that is not going to come across sometimes as strong as go ahead and pick up the phone and call Joe down the street, because Joe's been doing this for about 10 years longer, and he's going to give you probably a few good ideas that I can't even think of.
Welcome to The Training Effect, the show where we uncover how learning systems and training drive business success. I'm your host, Doug Mark, and today I'm joined by a true operational powerhouse in the franchise fitness world, Kristin Del Sontro. As Director of Operations at Retro Fitness, Kristin oversees multi-state franchise territories, driving performance, supporting franchise growth, and building systems that actually work. What makes her story really compelling to me is this journey she's been on for 20 plus years. And she's been leading high impact teams across some of the biggest names in retail. So we've got brands like Gap and H&M, David's Tea, Macy's, and Taylor. Before bringing that operational firepower and her talents to the franchise fitness space, she's a turnaround specialist, a people-first leader, a NASM-certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, and the founder of New Jersey's Sip Saver Social, a thriving women's networking group. Kristin leads this with energy, empathy, and excellence. And today we're diving into what it takes to build franchise operations that scale, teams that thrive, and training systems that actually stick. Kristin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're going to cover a menagerie of topics today, and you've built this career around turning underperforming operations into high-performing systems, and you lead that with your heart. So I'm just wondering, what first drew you into the franchise operations space, especially coming from the retail world?
Yeah, so it's kind of actually interesting. So I did about 20 years, maybe give or take, I don't want anybody dating me, in retail. And you get to a point in your career and you're like, that whole, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years? And retail managers from time to time, I got to say this, they have to wear a lot of hats in one day that aren't recognized. And I was kind of like fighting with myself, like, where could I apply my skill set? On a leap of faith, I just started applying to brands that I personally loved. One of which was Retro Fitness. And I by no means thought that they would even call me, because why would they? I had no, I wasn't a gym rat, as you like to say. Being transparent, I was overweight. And I was looking for a healthier environment, no pun intended, but I wanted to get away from the 4:30 a.m. trucks or the nights and the weekends and the holidays miss. Like where could I see myself? And so they called me. And I was really shocked by that. And I said, well, if anything, this will give me good interview time, because I hadn't done that in a while. And I was really surprised to find out that in the franchise system, this is a small business owner's, I want to be successful, and admittance that I need help in doing that. And the biggest place they needed help was business acumen and building teams. And I remember, and it was probably, obviously it was well received, they called me back, but I remember saying in my interview, I can't tell you how to bench press. I don't know any of this equipment, but I can tell you how to make money, and I can tell you how to build teams. So apparently that transferred because they called me. And as they say, I didn't look back from there. I loved it. I jumped in head first, and I've been super open with the people that I was working with. Like, I'm going to jump in this fitness industry, and I know I'm a student in all that I do. I'm going to learn as much as I can, but in turn, hopefully I bring something to the table that they can learn at as well.
You've really turned yourself into a fitness professional, right? Like, you actually are certified. And so did that journey start when, at what point did that journey start, and how did you kind of get into actually that side of it? Because you didn't have to go get certified to do your job, did you?
No, not at all. So it's actually kind of cool. So I'm proud I work with a company that's super big on just providing tools and resources. And that's not just to the franchisees. You do the whole performance review thing, and, professional growth is huge, but personal growth is huge. And I realized that, in meeting with trainers and owners that have been in the gym industry, I had a little bit of a lack of credibility, if you will. I could say, like, hey, I think you should look at your P&L, and then, but I don't know their frame of reference on things. So I said, if anything, can I get certified? And my, supervisors were like, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? I don't pass, right? So I joke, but I became a college student at night on the weekends, walking around with flashcards and learning things. And I personally learn by doing. So if you can imagine me reading about, how to do progressive workouts and teaching myself by putting myself through my own workouts, that's literally what I was doing. Super proud that I passed. And then I just kind of continued on. Like I have a passion for, not just doing things half. So the natural thing to do is learn about how to fuel your body. So that's where the nutrition cert came from. And just obviously realizing like you can learn all the things about working out, but if you're not fueling your body properly, you're really, you're only half there.
I've got more questions about your fitness journey, but I'm going to pause those and come back to your career here today. So you bring this unique blend, right? Fitness industry knowledge, franchise operational expertise, and frontline retail leadership. So how do you think the combination of those things shape the way that you approach your work today?
So I think first and foremost, when I came in and you're assigned, say, franchisees, right? I was a franchise business coach at first. I think I'm not too far removed from the fact of understanding there is pride involved in day-to-day managing a business, be it if you work for a corporate America or a franchise. But with a franchise specifically, you're dealing with somebody, this is their life's dream often and not. And, they need to be successful. They've got houses and kids going through college. And, there's an extra stress point in being honest and in forming a relationship with people. And I think that's where, I found a lot of success in that, where you have to put the time in and get to know the person and build the relationships. Otherwise, it's never going to work. You don't just start day one and say, hey, let me look at your P&L and tell you what you're doing wrong. If they did that, I probably wouldn't be in a good situation anyway, because that means that they probably don't even know what they're showing me. So, it's relationship building. Like, hey, like knowing who your early morning person is, or knowing who's in the gym after 2, or who doesn't want to meet you in the gym, maybe wants to just meet for a cup of coffee. Those are all important things, and that forms relationships and trust. Trust is big. They're opening up their home, right? That's their business. Whether they're a multi-unit, owner, or they're just the guy that's his life's, dream. I just want to have a gym. It's a very private place to them, and you need to be always aware of that and respect that.
And I love what you said there about trust. And that's something I feel like this comes in the sort of training and operations world a lot, where we talk about trust. And you spoke to something that really just resonated with me, which is, when a franchise owner buys into a franchise brand, they're giving up or changing, a career that they might have been doing for a long time, right? So this whole notion, right, that yesterday, I was a phys ed instructor and today I own a retro fitness, or I was an accountant, today I own a retro fitness. And so I talk about this a lot, which is how scary that is for owners, right? They're going through a massive life change, career change, as they're doing this. And so there's a decent amount of trust put into the brand, that the brand is going to supply like the training and the education, the coaching and the support that they're going to get, right? And so I don't know if you just want to sort of recap that a little bit, but it does seem to me like what a scary thing. They really rely on you guys to help them through this, right?
They do. So why does somebody go into a franchise versus, why would Doug not open Doug's gym versus owning the retro fitness? Because they're buying into understanding the fact of like, hey, retro fitness has the tools and resources to make me successful. What are the tools and resources? Well, it could be a variety of things. It could be just your field coach, right? Coming and meeting with you and saying, hey, Doug, let's look at your P&L. Let's look at your people piece. Let's get you ready for the next promotion. But the other piece, I think that's missed a lot, and it's kind of like that light bulb moment. When you come into a franchise, not only are you bought in, you signed a contract, that you get tools and resources, but there's this other piece of the puzzle that I have to sometimes remind them. You're buying into a network. You're buying into this peer network of other guys and girls just like you. So sometimes, like, when you sit down with an owner and you're like, hey, you're dealing with maybe your GM is having time management issues. Me giving you the solve on that is not going to come across sometimes as strong as, hey, Doug, I think you can, go ahead and pick up the phone and call Joe down the street, because Joe's been doing this for about 10 years longer, and he's going to give you probably a few good ideas that I can't even think of. So I always stress that in a franchise system, people tend to lose that, oh yeah, you get the tools and resources from the franchisor, but you also got a primo spot in with this whole network of like-minded individuals just like yourself.
I mean, it speaks to that quote I hear in franchising all the time, which is, when you get into franchising, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And that is sort of that light bulb moment, and knowing that we have these peer networks, right? And chances are someone has been through what you've been through before. And so it's sort of being open to the idea of reaching out to another franchisee and creating the ecosystem and infrastructure that encourages that. And it sounds like that's something that you do. And I love that. So
yeah, I always encourage the franchisees and even the general managers. I'm like, be generous with your time and pay it forward, right? Like what you learn today is somebody else's lesson to be learned tomorrow. And there's no reason, there's more than enough wins and room for everyone to be successful. There's no reason not to.
Oh gosh, I love that so much. And that speaks to kind of who we are here as well. So man, I love hearing that and hearing it quoted. Hey, you spent years, leading stores and districts, right, for major national retailers, places with big infrastructures, established playbooks, corporate support, and then you moved into franchise operations where every location is independently owned, and the playbook is often in some brands, right, still being written in many cases. That's a big shift. What did you learn making that transition from retail to franchise?
Yeah, I think very early on, I probably have the bruises to prove it. When you work in a corporate environment, big box specialty retail, you walk in as, say, like the regional manager, right? Yeah. You walk in, what you say goes. There's no conversation. There's no dialogue. There's no conversation on, maybe. It's, hey, I need you to move the mannequins to the left because I say so. When you come into a franchise situation, I always use this a lot. My job is to make suggestions. You make the decisions. And why is that important? Because we go back to the respect, right? I'm here. I am the vehicle for the tools, the resources, the best practices, because I want you to be successful. Your success is our success. That's just business. The respect factor is very different from a corporate situation where it's like, say, when I work for one of the major retailers you mentioned earlier, I'm there as a director, right? I'm just telling you what needs to be done. This is the deadline. It either is or it isn't. And if it isn't, that's a problem. In a gym or the franchise situation, I'm saying, hey, Doug, in my experience, if you move the mannequins to the left, your customers are going to see it more frequently and buy from them more often, versus you going, okay, she's telling me. No, I'm not telling you. I'm giving you my best suggestion, which is right by your business and by you.
I honestly take that as you're teaching versus telling.
100%. And it's the respect factor of it, because it's like, I trust that you're going to make the best decision by your business, whether I tell you what it is or not. Because, if you think about it, people will sometimes make decisions based on their gut, right? Yeah. And they learn. Maybe your gut gets it right. Maybe your gut doesn't get it right.
Yeah. Right. My gut's been wrong plenty of times, right? Like I often try to listen to it, but it's my gut or my spidey sense, one or the other, right, like kicking in. So what surprised you most about franchise operations compared to retail?
I think for me, it's probably, I don't know if it's operations as much as it is the industry change for me. I think people in the fitness industry, it's a lot of where they say it's always been this way. And I think there is a lot to be learned there. And I think we learned a lot coming out of COVID, because obviously people's idea of fitness has changed, even as long as I've been in the fitness industry, which is like 6.5 years right now. It's not, you don't go to the gym to just pick up weights and put them down. There's mental health. There's, movement. There's, hey, this is my only hour to myself and I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to do something that's going to be good for my body. And then just how people work out right now is so different too, right? Like I think, when I started going to the gym as a member, right, I didn't know how to do anything. I went into a group class and said, stand in the back and watch what they're doing and copy. Now I'm out in the free weight section and I'm using squat racks. Like that doesn't just happen overnight. You learn from the trends in the business, what's good for your body, what stage you're at, what your goals are, right? Are my goals to lose weight, or my goals to gain muscle, or my goals, I just don't want to be bothered for an hour because I have a stressful job and I just need an hour to myself. Fitness has changed dramatically. I just did that for myself, and that's a good enough answer.
Yeah, it's really been an evolution in this fitness space, and that's the thing about it, right? It's always changing. It feels like. Um, and I think the other interesting thing you said that really resonated with me is I don't think it's ever been more important this is going to sound like a plug and it's not, like to have a membership at a gym or some sort of right? I just feel like the stress that we're all kind of living through today more than any time in my lifetime, like getting that time away is really healthy, right? Where you can kind of focus on yourself for a little bit and drown out the noise, right? The outside noise gets drowned out. Hopefully the music noise gets turned up and we're getting a break for a stretch. And I think that obviously it's great for physical health, but really more than anything, it's really doing a lot for mental health as well.
No, and I say that. So I have kids who are in their teens, early 20s, and I give them credit. That generation gets a lot of slack for being slackers. But they look at their day differently than how I was brought up, right? I was taught to, be productive with every minute of my day and be an expert and work hard and do all the things. And, I say kids, they're not kids. They value their mental health. They look for when they go on job interviews, how much PTO do I get? Because I want to travel. They say, I'm going to take a job so that I can take that yoga class in the morning. Like these are priorities that were never there and that are so super important. And I applaud them for that, because it's like they're not making work the number one thing in their life. And that's awesome.
Hey, let's change gears a little bit. So as director of operations overseeing multiple states, you're essentially the glue between corporate vision and the franchisee execution. And in fitness especially, member experience is everything. But every club's got a different owner, different team, different challenges. How do you create consistency without crushing their autonomy?
I think you got to just basically, hear them, right? And understand what they deem important. You always have like those key performance indicators that obviously make the business tick and talk, but they may feel like they want to zero in on, say, one area of the business, right? And hear them out. Like, hey, like I have an area of my business, maybe personal training, and I want to grow my personal training department. How do I do that? Well, obviously it starts with STEP. So that would be like my first recommendation. Let's source you some good talent. Let's create the department. We actually at Retro have an in-house personal training department, which is awesome. So when you think of like all the suites of services, like things we can offer guidance on, that's there, right? Okay, good. What does the draft look like? Where do we want to be in 3 months, 6 months? How does that support your business, right? Now, okay, great. Now you've got extra revenue. What are we doing with it, right? So I think, there's a wide range of areas where you could press on things, profit centers, if you will, that you want to influence. But again, it's their business. It's, hey, where do you see yourself excelling, or where do you want to excel when you make the whole business plan of it all and, revisit it, be it, monthly, quarterly, depending on your management style, what are those benchmarks you want to hit? And if you didn't hit them, why? Was it because we didn't plan for something that came out of left field? Or maybe we did plan for something, but we didn't apply ourselves as much as we should have. So it's like that ever, ongoing conversation with an owner, where do you see your business? How do you use me as a tool or resource to navigate that?
Yeah, and these are things we're going to continue to kind of hit on, I feel like, for a little bit, because I think that this is what the audience is interested in, right? Is kind of understanding, well, what kind of support do I need to have, to run a good franchise program, I feel like. So when we think about what are the biggest like operational gaps you see when brands try to scale those franchise systems?
So I think a lot, I can only speak from Retro because that's where I've worked. So like we have like what's considered a suite of services, right? So, and this has been innovative at its best. I have to give a lot of credit to, our CEO and our executive team. They put a lot of importance in it. So we at Retro, if you say signed on the line that you want interest in Retro, what comes with that, right? So we have an in-house real estate department that will help you with everything from, selection of the site, analytics, best placement of the gym, right? Based on like traffic patterns and all this, they give you all the data. Then outside of that, what else? You have a in-house call center. So you have leads. How are they being followed up with? We have an in-house accounting department. So someone who's actually helping you manage, the P&L. You've got a marketing and a media department. You've got personal training department, I just noted. And then you've got your field team. You got your field coaches, right? That's a lot of support. That's just part of what we consider collectively like the suite of services to get you there. And then I would say also, this is super cool. Say if I was just an investor, right? I don't want to be in the gym. We actually have a program where you have a management agreement, and we run everything for you. So if you wanted to buy a gym right now and you're like, Kristin, I want to buy a gym for the investment. I'm not a gym guy. I don't want to go there. We've got a program for that. And it's customizable, right? Where maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to be that guy, but I'm also going to give the keys to the castle to, Tommy. I love Tommy and he's a great operator and he's going to run my gym. Great. We're going to pair Tommy up with Kristin, your field coach, and she's just going to meet with Tommy, and then you're going to get a report. When do you want the report? Once a week, once a month, every day? It's you call the shots within what we've already created within the suite of services.
What a nice support system. I think a lot of owners often when they're thinking about franchising, they're like, oh, I would love to buy a franchise, right? But they think that's because they get to be an absentee owner. And most systems don't really support that, is what I would say. And you guys are doing something different and rather unique there. So props to Retro.
I talked to other people out in franchising who do the same role as me. And the other good thing was, and this was started very much from the start, the span of a field coach is protected. So when I talk to like other, say, franchise business coaches where they have maybe 40, 50, 60 assignments to them, we keep the span super low at Retro Fitness so that this way the coach is literally in the backyard of the location, meaning your coach is within a drivable distance to be to you to be a support when needed. So if you want to say do a 5K this Saturday and you want your coach there, well, guess what? Your coach wants to be there too. So she's going to drive out there and she's going to, put on a shirt and be one of the team. People don't know that's your field coach. That's just part of your team. If you want to do a member engagement, night at your gym, which is awesome. Who doesn't love a good party at the gym? They're going to be there with you outside of just, the normal business day-to-days. So when you keep the coach's span, say like a dozen, maybe 15, depending on a lot, sometimes the owners are multi-units, which is great, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I have a couple of multi-unit owners. I don't meet them at all 5 of their gyms. Maybe we only meet at 1, but we're covering off on all 5 of their businesses. So that was something super, super different that I hear a lot from different other franchise business coaches. It's like you have this protected ability to support the franchisee the way that they want to be supported. And that's different for everyone too. So that's part of like when I first meet somebody, I always ask them and they're like, what does she mean? I'm like, how do you want to be supported? Are you a phone call guy? Are you an email guy? Are you an in-person only guy? These are important. And guess what? They learn your coach too. So I'll say this, if any of my franchisees watch this, they'll know exactly who they are. They know who I am too. They appreciate you being part of their team or on their team. We all, my CEO, Andrew Alfano, always says, we always wear the same jersey. And it's so true. It's not just a sports analogy. It's like we're all going after the same thing and we're all in it together.
Exactly. What a different makeup it is in this franchise world. So you're talking about, as we do have some audience members that are considering franchising or they're an emerging franchise brand. And often, when we're talking about the training program, they understand, hey, there's training that happens at the corporate level and there's often, training that might happen online. We might get some support calls, but you guys, will you tell us a little bit or tell the franchise world about what the role of the business coach is?
Yeah, of course. So basically, again, like everything and anything, I always tell people, I'm like, what do you do exactly? The best way, I'm a liaison, right? I have to see it through both points of view and keep the conversation going. And as far as like the training, it's ongoing, right? Somebody signs on the line, all the things are happening. The construction's going. That doesn't mean we don't talk to you until the building's done. We're going through pre-sale. We're creating the team. We're onboarding people. We're getting them ready for when the lights go on. We do all the things from soup to nuts, if you will, to get, said owner team ready for game day, lights open, right? But
yeah.
and then we don't just say goodbye. There's, obviously we do promotional playbooks. We have Teams calls regularly. Your coach will meet with you pretty much, if not every week, every other week, be it in person or on a Teams call, some capacity, but they're also available whenever you need them. I always say to them, like, call me, text me. I'm probably the most approachable human you ever wanted to see. And, that there's value in that, having like your, right arm available whenever you need them. Like, hey, Kristin, can you look at this? Or where do I find this report? Or is there a report? And I think from all of that interaction comes great things too, right? So if we're missing the mark on something, maybe we need a report on something. Guess what? That's great feedback, because what your question is probably 5 other people's question. If a promotion is rolled out and maybe it didn't go the way you wanted, why? Was it something that maybe we need to give more training or time or awareness to? Part of my role specifically as director is once a quarter, we have in-person field trainings. So we bring the training to the franchisees. So versus having like, say, a yearly convention, through feedback, we found out that they really like a smaller, segment, shot of vitamin C, if you will, of what they should be focused on and bring in resources. And then through feedback, we learned that they like learning from their peers. So we've incorporated, panel discussions. So versus Kristin getting up there and saying, this is what you should do for your member experience, I'm going to put 4 of your peers up there and they're going to tell you what they do and how they do it and what they've gotten from that. And that's been super valuable. It's ongoing. And then the awareness that people learn differently is huge for me. So like I mentioned earlier with my fitness, learning through NASM, I learned by doing. Not everybody learns by doing. Some people learn by reading. Some people have a combination of that. Some people are just visual learners. So having the tools and resources adaptable in a way where, okay, you attend the field training and we're talking about something, but maybe it didn't, come across the same way it did to somebody else, because guess what? Your receipt is different than theirs, and that's okay. So now your coach follows up with you a week after training. Hey, Doug, what did you think? Oh, well, okay. What did you get out of it? Okay, great. What are we doing with it? That's most important, right? It's great to go to a training and to do, but what are we doing with it? I don't want to waste your time. We don't want to waste our time. So it always has to be pertinent. And fitness specifically, whether people realize it or not, very seasonal. Right? That whole like January resolution thing, that's a thing, right? Where it's different than the member who joins a gym, say, in the middle of summer. So you have to have your teams and your speed and your clubs react to things differently, but yet the day in and day out, the operations, the, maintenance of everything, that stays the same. That's your steady Eddie, cost of admission, if you will.
And I'm thinking about the fact that the coaches are really the conduit between the franchisees and the franchisor. You're talking about like the importance of listening to franchisees and bringing back their voice so the franchisor can hear that. Like, these are all wildly important things. And then you're also talking about kind of meeting people at wherever they like to play in their space, sort of, and also recognizing that people don't all learn the same way. And you're delivering training in a number of different ways. And I think that this is why, Retro in particular is so successful, because these are all as I'm hearing these things, these are all the right things that really good, successful franchise brands are doing. It's this infrastructure of support that you guys have built. So I just kudos to you and your brand. So yeah.
Thank you. It's a good experience to be on, this side of the table and provide that type of support. Because especially coming from my background where I didn't have that interaction and you just get the directive, you get a human being. It's nice. Like I can just go back even just this week. I spent a whole day with a director of fitness and he oversees a few locations, and I took him to lunch and he's like, no, I'm like, no, this isn't about, like, I just want to be a human. Let's just break bread and have lunch and talk about you. I know you do a good job, but let me get to know you, right? Because I live in the community and that's the other thing. Like, again, we're in the backyards. I'm in this community. I work out in the gyms I'm assigned to, right? So I can speak from a member's lens, right? I can go to the competition and put a guest pass and say, hey, the guy down the street's doing this. It all comes together.
All right, let's have story time. Can you walk us through when you had to turn around an underperforming location, territory, could be in franchising or not, but what was broken? How did it get fixed?
Yeah, so I will tell you, my retail career, I was actually known as a fixer. So they intentionally would give me the poor performer and say, go girl. I will tell you, it's very interesting when you get a performance that's not where it should be. My go-to is usually, it was either one of two. It was either the front of the house or the back of house, right? Meaning it was either the people piece or the operations routines of the store. I have one specific one that comes to mind because it was quite the undertaking. It had both. So immediately, that's the other thing. Whenever I was assigned to a store without them knowing, I would go in a few days before they knew who I was and just experience it through the lens of a customer, right? What is the customer seeing, feeling, experience? Because your customer will tell you everything you need to know about your business, whether you want to believe it or not. So this specific store that I did take over, people piece was horrible. I went to the back stock room, horrible, no organization. Like if you told me to go find something, it was like that whole pencil in a haystack scenario, or like, oh my God, how does this stuff even get to the floor? It's probably needing to get marked down 4 times and money is just being lost all over the place. So I had to really figure that one out. And I think my best approach was I had an existing team that I inherited, which is usually the case in point, and nobody likes a new boss, right? So I had to bring them in one by one and sit them down and say, hey, I'm sure you have a story. I have one too. We're going to do this together. You have a choice right now. You could either be part of the team, part of my team, or you could be a customer, and that's up to you. These are my expectations. I'm not here to take complaints right now. I'm here to take people who are willing and wanting to be on a team and do things the right way. And I think by being straightforward with people, there's a lot of respect in that. I didn't tell no stories. I didn't tell people I'm going to make it all better. No, I didn't say that. I said, I'm going to need your help. I can't do this by myself. And you become a human. And then what you do is you realize very quickly where the undertaking of the training is needed, right? Maybe people don't know how to do markdowns. Maybe they don't know how to do proper processes to get stock to the floor on a timely basis. Maybe their schedules don't allow for it. Maybe they don't see the manager to actually receive the investment and know what the promotion is, right? All these things. So then you start making, small incremental changes and tweaking and investments along the way that also impact the operations, right? So you take the truck team. Hey guys, what time are you getting here for the truck? What does the room look before before stock rolls in? Do you have a nice clean space, or are you working in craziness? And I would always tell whoever I was reporting to at the time, they would say, oh, we need this place to make money in a year. And I'm like, I'll give you your year. I was like, but I'm going to promise you I'm going to get this making money in 6 months, 9 months, because here's the thing. In a situation where nothing has been done, the smallest of things makes impact. And then what you do is you emphasize those wins, especially with your team that's helping you get there. And, they start feeling the win, tasting the win. They want more of the win. That store, I can say that store was on what you consider a high target store, shrink store. They had a lot of theft, both internally and externally, because the external theft was coming from no customer service. Shocker. Right? You could just really walk in and walk out with whatever you want. The internal customer was taking what he or she wanted home because nobody was watching. So right there, I made money. Then you increase, loyalty from your customers or the people who were coming. Oh my gosh, it's clean now. Oh my gosh, I could find my size. Oh my God, the lights are on today and you opened on time. Now you've got a customer who's happy. Happy customers talk to other happy customers. So you've got the whole, this 2 people talk to that 2 people. And there you have it. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Now you got a store that was on a high shrink target list, losing money in all directions, had one of the most successful Black Fridays the company ever saw.
And it sounded like they really needed some leadership at that point, right? And you were able to provide that because when you're taking all of those steps, right? When everything is organized and clean, and when customers walk in, they're being welcomed with a smile, into the store. It changes the whole entire atmosphere, right? This is kind of a layup probably, but what role does training play in maintaining operational standards across a distributed network like a franchise system?
It plays everything, right? Because if you're not in tune to what's needed, how do you progress, right? It's just like with anything else. If you're just kind of blindly throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks, not everybody's going to listen, take heed to it, do anything with it. So, we're very big on feedback in my company. Like I mentioned a few times, that's not just to have it. We look at it. You've got different eyes and ears looking at it and incorporating it and saying, you always want to be better than you were yesterday, right? So how do you do that? By being aware of where the need is, and training fills the need. So you have to be aware of where your customer's at, where your staff is at. I would think the other thing too, in the fitness industry, much like retail, we are sometimes a lot of the time somebody's first job, right? So this isn't, their lifelong dream to be, the front desk girl at the gym. But guess what? You have a responsibility. You're this 16-year-old's first boss, and first, I have to punch in and punch out, and I have expectations. And, I tell my GMs and my owners that all the time, because it's something I was faced with in retail. They're not going to stay with you forever. You are going to have to fill their role in a year when they go to college, right? But guess what? You're always going to be the one that they look back. You set the race, you set the pace. You're the one that made the influence, and it's up to you to do that or neglect that. And if you do it right, it comes back to you tenfold. It really does.
I adored that response. When I think about what you just said, actually resonated with me, because I always think about the fact that like hiring, hourly staff, and I'm like, these are, young people, 18 to 25, but I didn't make the connection that you just made, which was really obvious now after you made it, which is this is their first job a lot of the times, right? And so I've always said, like, you don't have to just, tell people, you can't just tell people to do things. You need to explain how to do those things and why it's important to do those things. Because I think about this, if it's my first job and you tell me to mop the back floor, well, where do I start? How much cleaner do I put in with the water? Creating training for somebody who's mopped a floor 200 times. We're creating training for the person who's never mopped a floor before, and explaining why it's important to do that. And that's what with training, I always love the why so much. Like and I also feel like that is something the younger generation really wants to understand. They don't want to just be told what to do. They want to understand why it's done that way. They're curious. They want to learn.
And they want to be part of the bigger picture, right? So I think of my daughter. I won't say where she works, but I thought it was really cute. So she works for another franchise situation. And she got to meet the owner one day, and if you picture this 17-year-old, I get to meet the owner. And her first question to the owner was, who's your franchise business coach? And the owner goes, what do you know about a franchise business coach? And she's like, well, my mom did that. My mom's a director. And she was just like, just because my mom is in her clubs all the time, and I've been here about 2 months, and I haven't seen your franchise business coach. And I was like, oh gosh, Kylie. And she was so excited over dinner that night to tell me she had this in her mind, a high-level conversation with the owner about how the franchise business coach role and the presence should be there. You think it's the same thing. That's her first job, and that's her impression. Like, she's looking at her manager for everything that she needs to know.
So one thing that stands out about your career is how consistently you show up as a people-first leader, right? Like, whether you're coaching individuals, you're leading workshops, or developing succession pipelines in franchising where turnover can be really high and resources are tight, how do you build a culture that retains and develops talent?
I think you have to identify yourself as wanting to be a preferred place to work. So when you think about the gym, I'm very big on community. It's just who I am. I always put a big emphasis with the owners and the GMs. Be the community gym. Be the one that first comes to mind. Who doesn't want to work for the one that first comes to mind, right? And then having that high standard of self transfers into how you treat your staff. Your staff is a reflection of you. You have to really be in tune to that. Are you hiring the right reflection of you? You also have to be in tune to who your customer is. We used to do this in retail, like, having stores in different demographic areas, you have to be aware, like, hey, like, does my staff mirror who my customer is so that my customer feels comfortable, right? So I took that with me for retail into the gym industry. Like, do I walk into a gym and it's very male heavy? What does that look like to the mom who, her kids now go to school and now she wants to do something during the day? She's intimidated to begin with. She probably doesn't even know what she's doing walking in a gym. Is there a female for her to talk to and relate to? If not, that's something as a coach I try to make them aware of. Like, you want a very balanced staff, not to just be fair in who you're hiring, but think about it from the terms of who your customer is, right? Somebody comes into a gym, I tell people all the time something I had to learn for myself because it really kind of puzzled me. what do people look for in a gym? What are they shopping? Why wouldn't somebody just join online, right? The gym has equipment, whether you know what to do with it or not, it all has the same stuff. And I quickly learned there's like 3 things that people look for when they shop for a gym. One, they want to obviously see if there is equipment. Okay, great. The second thing is cleanliness. Obviously, everybody's definition of cleanliness is different, especially coming out of COVID. Your standard should be higher of your members so that you're always on point consistently. And then the third thing is the people. Do your people do a good job of making people feel comfortable where they can make this and see this in their head? Like I can see myself checking in here 2-3 times a week. I can see myself being comfortable if I have a question on using a piece of equipment to go to the desk or find the trainer. Or is it a quiet, environment where maybe that intimidation will force me to get out and then stop checking in? So the awareness of where your staff is and what's needed to give them that realization is huge.
Yeah, and I'm realizing now as you're saying this, like how important the front desk role is.
100%.
I never would have, right? These are just things you don't think of. But when you start, when you hear it explained, you're like, of course, like this is the first impression. And if somebody's coming in to sort of do a vibe check and just say, hey, right, can I see myself here? Mm-hmm. That first impression that I get from that person at the front, that's the tone setter, right? Again, these are just little obvious things sometimes that I think have really impactful moments. So I've got 25 more questions I want to ask you, of course, right? So we're going to have to go short answer for a little bit. What's some advice that you give other franchise leaders about understanding the product or services that their franchisees are delivering?
I think kind of going back to what we spoke of before, that you just have to be a good human, right? Just be a human first, be a person first, be it if it's you identifying with your customer, identifying with your staff. I think, if you start there, you'll end there in a good way. You don't overcomplicate it. Perfect.
All right. What's the best part about founding New Jersey Sip, Savor, and Social?
Oh my God, it's so surprising.
You made it.
Yeah. So I will say this, a daily message from a random human being telling me that this is much needed, appreciated, and they are the better for it.
Tell the podcast listeners what it is.
Okay. So I identified that a lot of women have problems making friends, especially coming out of COVID. People are working remotely. I found them just speaking to people that the only friends that they have are, the family members that they've been, accustomed to having to deal with at Thanksgiving, the moms and dads of their kids' friends, or the people they work with, and they lack that genuine connection. So on a whim, I created an Instagram page that encouraged ladies, strangers, to meet at New Jersey restaurants. We all pay our own check.
Yeah.
And the idea is just to have something to put on your calendar and to meet new people. It has been amazing. I have restaurants reaching out to me. They want us there. They curate special menus for us. We keep it casual, so there's no social anxiety as far as going to a fancy restaurant and knowing which fork to choose and all the things that people think of. But I do a little bit of analytics just to kind of keep a pulse on it. But we've had 17 to 72. That's the ages of the women who have joined. We're over 550 followers. It's just been amazing. Like just this last Tuesday, we had a dinner and a lady told me she had a stomach ache for 2 days and she wanted to cancel. And she was so anxious to come, and I said, you're no different than anybody else at this table. I always say that you're super brave. Like, you're going to dinner with strangers, you know what I mean? And what does that look like? But it's been amazing. It really has been amazing. I've got guys now wanting to go, and I'm like, no, it's a ladies group. Sorry, go make your own.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. There are plenty of boys clubs.
That's it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're keeping this.
Go join a boys golf club. Yep.
Wow.
Kristin, this has been just amazing. For those, who want to connect with you, learn more about your work, maybe explore opportunities with Retro Fitness, where should they go to reach out to you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, pretty easy, accessible there. You can get me on Instagram. You can look up New Jersey Sip, Savor, Social there. That's a good way because, again, I get a lot of messages every day, which I love. I protect a good 20 minutes every day just to read. and respond, because it's social. You're supposed to respond.
Yeah.
And then for Retro Fitness, if you would go to the Retro Fitness website, you scroll down, there is a tab for franchising. There's actually a free discovery book, which is super cool.
Oh.
And you could actually download the book and it'll go through all the suite of services that I explained earlier. And it'll actually give the information to the team, letting them know that you have interest, and they would follow up with your questions.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Look, this has been a really energizing conversation with Kristin Del Sontro about what it really takes to build franchise operations that scale, lead with heart, and create lasting impact. If you want to connect with Kristin, she just gave you her LinkedIn as well as the website. So look, if this resonated with you, please subscribe to The Training Effect, leave a review, share it with a franchise leader or operator who's ready to level up their systems and their people. Thank you so much for tuning in. Kristin, you were such an amazing guest. Thank you. Really.
Thank you.
It was awesome. Bye, everybody.